Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of Angel Terminators, a Hong Kong action flick from 1992 that stars Sharon Yeung, Kenneth Tsang, and Kara Hui. Within a few months' time, the Triads will control every major crime activity in the Pacific Rim, and no law enforcement agency in the world will be powerful enough to stop them. But all of that changes when the Angel Terminators arrive. Excelling at gunfighting and hand-to-hand combat techniques, they are given authorization by their superiors to use any means necessary to stop the crime wave, and that includes the use of excessive force. So this is girls with guns, old school here, alright? So there's a lot to enjoy. The filmmakers of Angel Terminators used the following strategy while making this film. Throw in a huge quantity of short but sweet action scenes, and then pepper in just enough story and conflict to make it work. Now, consequently, the pacing is very fast because someone is usually fighting or killing someone else every 5 to 10 minutes in this movie. Now, the only exception to this structure is a healthy showcase of the bad guy's slimy personality, which kind of dominates the earlier portions of the final act. More on that later. But we're not really here for a big story. We're here for the action. And I feel like the most efficient way to review this film and to give you a feel for it is to detail out some of the action scenes in chronological order and certain plot lines that emerge between them. And I think that'll give you a good feel of what to expect here. So very early on, first scene is a shootout between Kara Hui's cop team and Kenneth Tsang's goons. And there's some decent gunfire and an explosion. Short, but pretty good. A few minutes later, there's a separate conflict, it seems, involving men who are holding children hostage in a school. Very quick resolution to that situation. And, within the first 5 minutes, you're thinking to yourself, like, this movie's going, like, it's like level 10 in terms of pacing. But are we just gonna, get very short action pieces throughout the whole film that are kind of good but not totally satisfying? It's kind of the feel that you get, but things do get better, as we'll see. Now, coming back to Kenneth Tsang's character, we get a little bit of an introduction to him. He's back in town. He's the big baddie of the film. He immediately wants to start a war with another gang leader who has betrayed him. And, they set that up for a few minutes, and then we get another action scene, which is like a legit good fight between different factions of bad guys at an amusement park, and that's when actress Michiko Nishiwaki shows up. And if you've seen any number of Girls with Guns flicks back in the day, she's a welcome addition to any film because she can move very well, and she has appeared in some, classics of the era. So it was very nice to see her in this, and she actually does get a pretty significant supporting role, which is good. And then you get a few other seemingly random criminal acts that just pop up and our protagonists have to stop dudes. And they're not all directly connected to the main bad guys. They'll just be walking in a mall, bad guys show up with machetes. All right, we got to take them down. So it's pretty fun. Now, it's almost as if some of the scenes in this movie exist just for our protagonists to walk into dangerous situations and fight people. But I'm fine with it. There's so much action you can't help but enjoy. Now, eventually, a separate subplot emerges. All right, you get Kenneth Tsang, who's fighting these other gangsters and the cops, and then you have him, and he's hung up on a woman from his past who has connections to the police force, and that's played by Sharon Yeung. We get a little bit of romance mixed in, which isn't not very interesting, but don't worry, they don't spend much time on it. So yeah, both of these different subplots will eventually come together during the second half. Now, I'd like to point out the best action scene in the film, and it's in the middle. You get this really long, extended action set piece. The cops storm a dock area to take down the bad guys who are smuggling something within sun-kissed orange crates. And it's definitely my favorite scene of the movie. You get, now Kara Hui is a supporting actress in this, but she's absent for the entire middle section of the film. But Sharon Yeung impresses in this. And she does a very good job in the lead role. She gets a sweet fight against what I would call the Hong Kong version of Humphrey Bogart. He's some old dude with a hat, and he puts up a fight. That was a really sweet scene. And this is all to the backdrop of like gunfire between the cops and the bad guys. So very cool scene. Now at this point, the film slows down a little bit right in the final act. And Kenneth Tsang's character really comes into the forefront. And he's just a slimy. He's not a nice guy. All right. He decides to wage complete war against the cops. He kidnaps cops. Gets them hooked on drugs. It's like really, the film gets pretty dark in terms of tone at this point, but the pacing does slow down a little. But then we kick into the final gear in the final act. Kara Hui comes back in. Dick Wei shows up. So it's a pretty good finale. You know what I mean? It is. So, it's the best way I could break down this movie for you instead of just saying there's a bunch of action and the bad guy's slimy. So, there is a lot of action in this. The one thing that kind of holds it back a little bit from being like one of my personal favorites is even though the quantity of the action is high and the overall quality is very good, the length of most of these fights does give a slight sense of dissatisfaction because there's some scenes that last a minute, you know what I mean? And then the conflict will be resolved and then we move on, which is it makes it seem a little bit clunky. I would have preferred a consolidation of some of the smaller scenes into like chunkier action set pieces, but it's just a feeling I got while watching this. But it's an action-packed romp in the girls with guns subgenre of Hong Kong cinema. Grab some popcorn, kind of turn your brain off, and you will probably enjoy this. It makes a solid double feature with Angel Terminators 2, which I will be reviewing very soon. Now, Angel Terminators is currently available streaming on YouTube. I'll provide a link in the description box below, and it's free. Now, hopefully someday we get some Blu-rays of these films, but we'll have to see. And as always, folks, I'll see you next time.